Now that we've cleaned up the photograph, cleaned up the color and tone, and worked on the structure a little bit, we have some more ground to cover in regards to the makeup, the skin smoothing, the brightness values, and whatnot. Before we get to those items, what I want to do is work on the background a little bit, because one of the things that I'm noticing here, now that I've got this image to this particular location, is that this dark shadow over here is a little bit distracting for me, and I want to remove it. So what I'm going to do is create a new layer, and I'm going to do that by pressing Shift-Option-Command-N on a Mac, Shift-Alt-Control-N on a PC. That gives you the ability to create a layer without opening up the layer naming dialog. Again, on a Mac, Shift-Option-Command-N. On a PC, Shift-Alt-Control-N. All right, we'll press the S key to grab our clone stamp tool, 100%. We'll zoom in a little bit on this area, make our brush nice and big. And here's what we're going to do. Sample all layers. Hold in the Option key on a Mac, Alt key on a PC, and we're going to click and paint down. Click and paint down, click and paint down. And then we're going to slowly, clicking and painting down, just bring in this color. And what will happen is when we bring in this color, because it's so dark down here, initially we're going to think, man, that is just too bright. So we'll go ahead and sample a little bit darker up top and click and drag that down. Sample, click and drag that down. But it's really not that it's too bright. It's just that it was so dark down here. So again, just a quick way to clean this up. And then I'll go ahead and do the same thing over here along this portion of the image. Now, when you get close to an image like this over here on the right, there are a couple of strategies we can take. One is we can, of course, lower our brush size, right? And so we're going to lower our brush size. And typically what we want to do is just make sure that we're sampling a color that makes sense to have in that particular area. And so I'm just going to go ahead and with this nice soft edge brush, get really close there, make my brush a little bit smaller, and then even get a little bit closer here. And if we make a mistake, the nice thing about this is we're on a new layer, so we can undo this at any point, which is really nice. It's nice to have that flexibility. So one of the things that I like about working in this context, using different layers and then flattening them down, is you have flexibility as you go. You can always undo something at any point. It doesn't take up a ton of extra file size as you're beginning this process. A little bit smaller brush size, zoom in a little bit more, and so you get the gist, right? We're just slowly kind of taking this back. In this case, I made a little bit of a mistake there, but that's okay. And then down here, I'm just going to make my brush a little bit bigger. I think I would make it smaller, but I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so I can just kind of approach this edge. And I am taking a little bit of the arm out here. No big deal. Click on the Add Layer Mask icon, grab my brush tool, paint with black, and then I can bring this back out here so we can see that as I paint along the arm here, I can bring back the shadow, hit the X key, and I can paint it away. So I can go from one side to the other and just take out any dark shadows there along the arm. All right, there's my before and after, removing that. I'm not quite convinced about my edge there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and with my mask, painting my mask, I'm going to hit the X key to paint with black. I'm going to bring back in a little bit more of the shadow. What I realized is I think I just got a little bit too close to the arm. So I'm going to bring some more of that back and just make my way up and down this area. And then I'll paint it back out. I'm going to try to do this a little bit more uniform. Zoom out a bit. Now I'll paint with white here to reveal what I've done and just try to get a nice clean line along that little bit bigger brush here. And sometimes when you have a bigger brush, you'll get a little bit more flexibility, a little bit smoother edges and lines there. It can help out sometimes. Make a mistake, hit the X key, and you can always undo that. All right, well, I think that's looking pretty good. Let's see how we're doing so far. Here's our before and after. Nice. Let's do a little bit more cloning. We'll click into this layer, grab our clone stamp tool. Nice big brush here this time. Hold in the Option key on a Mac, Alt key on a PC, and I'm just going to click and drag down just to even out any tone that I have that I didn't like. All right, great. Well, now that we've done that, we notice another little small area up here. I'm going to remove that. I'm going to say, well, what would happen if we wanted to change this background color altogether? Yeah, we've cleaned up the tonality of the background color, but what about changing it? How would we do that? Well, we'll do that in the next movie.